too puny to hold all the literary characters I've read about in my mind. As we see our first draw of the match. Or
we
wait,
get second.
Draw?
It's our second.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, remember game 2 was that actually very impressive game where Wesley held that end game, which we thought at the time was going to be super critical. Wesley did go on to lose the next few, but I think that a draw is still not a bad result for Wesley. He has officially stopped the bleeding in the last 2 games. And who knows, maybe he gets a win as white and keeps this thing close.
Okay, Caro-Kann. We haven't had a Caro-Kann yet. I always like new openings in the SCC. And Wesley responding with an ultra solid exchange Caro. This has been very, very popular. It's a good way to fight for the advantage. And this structure also occurs, as some people in the chat will know, in the London system. In fact, you could get a direct transposition from the Caro-Kann exchange line to the London.
Yeah. And you know how we feel about the London.
We do. Not very positively.
I tried to delete the London from the game of chess in a video we did last week. Unfortunately, turns out it wasn't a good idea. But all right.
Sorry, Eric.
Yeah, there you go. Although today there was something huge on social that there's like a Rosen score, which ranks the possibility for tactics and weird ways to trick your opponent. So shout out to Eric Rosen and his ability to break people's hearts with obnoxious chess. Did I say that right?
I think you said it perfectly, Danny, as you always do. You know what else is perfect?
Right.
That knight on e5, which can't be captured because you get forked.
That is a unicorn of a pony, and if you take it, white takes back with the pawn. You get kind of a new square at times for the other knight potentially. At this point, of course, it's not even an option because you would lose a piece. But yeah, that is a beautiful knight.
And black's arteries are kind of clogged here. The way you play here with black is you work around this knight, but it's not pleasant. Now, if you really want to eliminate it, then you need to drop your queen back or your f6 knight back to d7, which we might see, and that directly challenges the knight. I actually would have dropped the queen back to c2 in order to prevent the f6 knight from moving back. But I wonder what Wesley cooks up against knight d7 here. Maybe it's f4, but f4 is always a committal move in such positions because you are weakening the e4 square. But, Danny, with that knight on d2, bishop on d3, and rook on e1, I absolutely think Wesley can get away with f4 if he wants to. Right now, there's no real necessity to play that move.
Yeah. It's a great point. I'm also trying to anticipate what was the idea of a3. I'm trying to imagine opportunities where the queen comes to b4, because if that trade happens, the a file opens up. So maybe Wesley was sort of prophylaxis thinking about that idea down the road. Otherwise, it is a very kind of strange, not very aggressive move. And yeah, I don't quite know. Magnus played rook c8.
Great move. You might say, why is he putting the rook on a closed or semi-closed file? Because queen c2 there was impossible due to knight takes d4. So the queen on b3, very weirdly, is almost stranded on the queen side. Can't go back to d1, can't go back to c2. And instead, Wesley banking on his other pieces, preparing to double rooks on the e-file. I still like his position, but I think Magnus is doing a great job of working around the knight on e5.
Yeah. You called it. Working around the pony. Now it should. I was going to say it should be noted for the first time you could take it because you're no longer getting forked. And before I could even complete the sentence, Magnus does take it, which is interesting, right? He gets rid of the strong knight. After takes, he will put his knight on. Wait, is he just going to go back, or is he going to? Going to get spicy in here.
That's what's giving Wesley pause. 99% of the time you recapture with the pawn automatically. Here you have to calculate knight g4, and Magnus is going to pause here as well. It's more up his alley to play knight d7 and bishop g6, but if he's feeling brave, which he's not in this position, he would have gone knight g4.
This definitely feels like the human call. This is a very scary move to play. It might have been the best move, actually. But all right, knight d7. Now you're going to put the bishop on g6 quickly. Wait.
Queen b4, queen h4 is a really nasty idea, Danny. Sorry to interrupt. If the h-file opens.
You can interrupt any time if you're talking about sweet nothings on the king's side. I love that idea. That is a mating net that I am happy to see. And
I think Magnus has to take back with the f-pawn. Again, this is if he plays bishop g6.
That would be so painful.
Knight takes c5, by the way. Bishop takes h7 check. Talk about painful.
Yeah, let's bring up the analysis board because we got some critical ideas to show in this moment. First of all, if bishop g6 takes, Danya's pointing out that you kind of have to take with the f-pawn, because if you take with the h-pawn, I think the first thing white does is defend the pawn, Danya, but this h-file is going nowhere, and you are in very, very dangerous territory. So if you take with the f-pawn, that is ugly AF.
Yep.
I think I'm allowed to say that.
I think you are too. And instead, knight takes c5, let's just very quickly show.
Yeah.
Counterattacking the bishop, runs into bishop takes h7 check, king h7, rook h5, forking the other knight. It's so aesthetically pleasing when you do this. You take one minor piece, and then you fork another in the process. And Magnus, with a drastic g6. Wow.
Holy fork balls. He's in trouble, and he knows it. He plays g6, and now rook comes back to e3, which I love this move from Wesley, especially that he played it quickly. Maybe there was something better, Johnny, but he quickly knows just how devastating this move is for black. The bishop is trapped. It's ugly. And he's like, I'm not going to sit here and try to find a concrete win. I'm going to defend my e-pawn. Black is down on the clock and down on the position. That is a very strong, practical move to make so quickly.
Absolutely. And look at that bishop on h5. Look at it carefully because it might not last too long. Queen b4. Earlier, you were playing that move to ferry the queen to the king side. Now, you would be playing this move to prepare g4. And with the pawn on g6, it's actually very hard to find alternate arrangements for the bishop. You're not going to go g5 here, are you? I mean, that looks like a devastating weakening of the king side. So you might have to get the queens off the board with queen to b6. But white could also, Danny, play h3 and reinforce the threat of g4. Magnus is walking on hot coals right now, and he might get burned.
Yeah. I agree with everything you said, especially your eloquent choice of words, the metaphors. He might get burned. At this point, I am all in. And I think he is going to. I think he might get more than burned, right? This is going to be a problem here. I think Wesley So is going to get his second win.
And after h3, the one bright spot for Magnus is he can play g5 there. g5 is a much less scary move to play if the queens are off the board. And at that point, he has no choice because you're either losing a minor piece or you're weakening your king. And, you know, definitely the second is the lesser evil. Wesley could also drop his bishop back to c2. That would be very much a move in his style to prevent the black knight from having that escape route in terms of taking the bishop. So tough decisions here for Wesley, and I think he senses this is a pivotal game. He wins another one, and the lead suddenly becomes, or the deficit, I should say, suddenly becomes manageable. Can he contain his nerves and keep playing as accurately as he has early in this middle game?
Agreed. I love the move bishop c2, and it is awfully Wesley So-esque-ish. And yeah, I mean, g5 will be a move that is forced at some point to save the bishop's life, but it might be more than weakening the king. It might also just lose the g5 pawn, right, in some positions where you can go after it. And so, yeah, Wesley in the driver's seat. I think he knows it. Magnus feeling a little parched, and he clearly knew it. Took a sip of whatever that beverage is. And here we go. He does take it.
And
is he going to go h3? He does.
Okay, g5 we're going to see, but Magnus could take the bishop. I would not take the bishop first. I would go g5 straight away.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that considering all of the things that could have happened after Magnus's 18th move g6, this is, you know, it's bad, but it's a manageable kind of bad. And now he's suddenly up on time as well.
I agree. It feels like Wesley stole a slight advantage in a position where he had a clear one. And he still is, I think, in the driver's seat, but it could have been worse for Magnus, for sure. Here comes d4, by the way. Talk about counterplay.
And we've seen these games turn around not just 90 degrees, Danny, but 180 degrees. Magnus is definitely thinking about taking over the initiative, and d4 is the perfect moment to do that. Now he's going to go bishop g6, I think, to set up a knight infiltration to d3. His bishop, ironically, is now the safest piece on the board, and it's white's bishop on b5 that's out of the game completely.
Wow. What a twisted turn of events there. Poetic description from Danya. The bishop has self-trapped with this move c4. Very nice move. You're going to put the knight on d3, maybe even right away.
H5.
Maybe you take back first. But, okay, he does. There's all kinds of problems here for white.
All sorts of problems. Rook e2. Black has a draw in his pocket. Magnus could drop back to f4 with his knight and keep repeating moves. He's going to do it at least once, I think, and then decide, do I want to go for the win here with something like h5? I don't think so. I think Magnus should go for the draw and take what he can get here. Half a point is great, but that's why Magnus is sitting at that chair and playing and not me. Magnus goes for it.
He's like, I appreciate the caution, Danya. I'm going to go for it. 94.
Yep. How about going after the b2 pawn, Danny?
Yeah, why can't you just take b2? I think that's a problem. And in
D3,
fact, Magnus
D2.
does it. Because this pawn is out of control. It doesn't matter what you win with check. Your bishop isn't playing. It's blocked by your own pawn. The d pawn runs. Dancing Donna, baby girl Donna on d1. Bring on the lady.
d1 can be used also as a transit point for the knight. Knight d1 back to c3. Try that on for size. How about them apples?
How you like them apples, huh?
How do you like them apples? 4 seconds for Wesley. He's losing control of the game again. Knight c3.
Knight c3. And Danya, unfortunately...
Knight e4. Knight d2. Fork!
It's a double fork. Here.
No.
Here. I gotta grab the emote before they rematch. I did it. Boom!